The Blue Line Coalition has begun the process of shifting the paradigm and have more people within the system actively thinking about their role.
Transitway projects and infrastructure projects of this size have a legacy. And we are still trying to undo the legacy of the effect that interstates have had on low-income communities and communities of color. The Metro Blue Line extension running from Minneapolis to Brooklyn Park connects North Minneapolis, Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park to the rest of the region. When you look at that 1 mile radius along the line, just about 50% are people of color.
Nexus and the Phillips Family Foundation had a shared interest in ensuring that communities of color had the power to influence decision-making along the transit lines.
If the community wasn't engaged in the decisions with this alignment from the very start, then the outcomes the community needed wouldn't have been accomplished. There was a chance that this light rail line was actually going to skip Minneapolis altogether, that North Minneapolis would benefit not at all, so we had to get out in front of it. Nexus Community Partners came back with a report and said, there really isn't a lot of capacity, but there's interest.
And so we convened folks and said, imagine if we leveraged the power and the wisdom of the organizations that live and operate along the whole line.
The J. Rose Phillips Family Foundation sponsored us, and Nexus took on a technical assistance role with us.
And so that's how the Blue Line Coalition was birthed.
The Blue Line Coalition has been able to impact and have change on policy and structure in government and on community, because residents have been engaged, and being able to deliver community voice in a way that the policymakers were engaged and begin to look at their own practices and want to be of benefit to those communities.
A prime example of this has been the fact that Blue Line Coalition leadership participate on the Corridor Management Committee for the corridor, which has really been a body reserved for mayors, city council members, department heads.
We are continually trying to change the system, that this is how it should happen. We shouldn't have to think about it. The Met Council and the county and the city and all of the entities that are building these major projects should not have to think, well, how do we engage the community? It should just be in the DNA of the project. By getting out in front as far as we are, it's changing the way the projects are put together, period.
The critical thing about the Blue Line Coalition is that it's not just about a public participation process where you are providing input into a plan, but it is having that external power to government so that you can hold the process and the implementation process accountable to those grander visions around full economic inclusion.
Social justice equity changes the dynamic for community members, that they actually have a stake in this. This is yours, and that's an equitable arrangement.
The majority of the interest we have as foundations about benefiting disinvested communities, if we want our interests to be met, these kinds of infrastructure projects are huge because they create access to jobs, they create access to opportunity, they can significantly influence how development happens in those communities.
We have to make a decision that short-term responses to these long-term life situations are no longer acceptable. We have to shift the way that we do this work.
That's why foundations with our influence, with our access, with our knowledge are really important to be involved in these projects. But it should be involved with the community, not on behalf of.
If we as funders believe that everyone in our community deserves the same opportunities to thrive, and if we believe that our systems have been created to produce the outcomes that they are producing, then we know that we have to be able to invest in transformational systems to get a different set of results. And that requires investing in people who can organize, who can catalyze a different set of actions. The Blue Line Coalition has been doing that.
Coalition building is one thing, sustaining that momentum is another. Nexus, J. Phillips, and McKnight, and the Northside Funders Group have come together to support us in what will be our next evolution of sustaining that.
So the role that Northside Funders Group will play is one of partnership and support. We will be an organizational home for the Blue Line Coalition, which means we will have a staff person who will be joining us. And we don't just want to staff it. We want to put expertise there. We want it to be a true partnership where our work complements one another and we can integrate it.
This coalition can do even more with more capacity, because with all the planning that's gone on, there's an enormous amount of opportunity for more engagement and more stakeholder involvement.
How can we be in partnership more long term? Not just that 1-year grant, not just picking one piece of the puzzle that we're interested in, but really saying, am I invested in this vision? That's the type of partnership that it will require to ensure that we get the goals that we're really looking for.
So we have an opportunity with these transitway projects to really rewrite this so that future generations can have a very different story.